Welcome back to True Haunted Realms. Tonight, we're venturing deep into the eerie heart of the Appalachian Mountains, through the misty Blue Ridge forests. Listen closely, because what happened in these remote woods is not for the faint of heart. Get ready for 8 terrifying true horror stories that will haunt you long after the sun sets. The fog rolled in thick tonight, curling like smoke through the trees. The road ahead was narrow and twisting, lined with dense pines that seemed to lean closer with each turn. My headlights barely cut through the gray, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I'd been driving for hours, hoping to make it home before midnight. The silence inside the car was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the steering wheel and the hum of the engine. My fingers tightened around it as a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I blinked. Nothing. Then I saw her. She stood at the side of the road, pale and still. Her eyes were hollow, black holes stretching into nothing, and her hair clung damp to her skin. For a moment, I thought I was imagining her. Maybe the fog, exhaustion, or the long drive was playing tricks. But then I heard the whisper. "My car, help me." It was soft, almost gentle, but it had a weight pressing into my chest, making it hard to breathe. I slammed on the brakes. The car shuddered, then stilled. The tires had sunk slightly into the misty asphalt, as if the road itself had swallowed them. I forced myself out of the car. The fog wrapped around my legs like icy fingers. The trees seemed to lean closer. Each breath I took smelled of damp earth and wet pine. The whisper came again, closer this time, curling around me like the fog itself. She didn't move, just stared. I took a step forward. My boots crunched on unseen leaves. Another step. The air grew colder, my skin tingling with a clammy chill. I glanced back at my car. Miraculously, the engine roared to life. Relief surged, but it didn't last. The road behind me had disappeared. There was nothing but fog, endless gray curling into darkness. The whisper now sounded like a chorus, echoing from every direction. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I stumbled back to the car and tried the ignition again. This time it started immediately, almost eagerly. I drove slowly, eyes darting to the mirrors and into the foggy trees. For a second, I thought I saw her silhouette in the corner of my vision, moving impossibly fast between the trunks. I shook my head. Surely it was the fog, right? Then the whisper came one final time, right beside my ear. "Don't leave, not yet." My stomach dropped. I slammed on the brakes. The road ahead had vanished. Only the pale, hollow eyes of the woman glimmered in the headlights. I backed up as far as I dared, fog curling around the tires like icy snakes. Finally, the car caught the road again, and I sped forward without looking back. My heart raced. Every shadow beyond the trees seemed to twitch. Every branch scraped like fingernails on metal. Hours later, I reached a town, the fog finally thinning as dawn broke. I didn't stop until I was safely inside my apartment, doors locked, windows shut. But even here, I couldn't shake the feeling. Every shadow in the corner of the room seemed to stretch and writhe. And sometimes, when the wind presses against the glass just right, I swear I hear her whisper again, "Don't leave, not yet." The road to Hollow Pines was narrow and forgotten, like the forest itself wanted to hide it. My friends had dared me to spend the night in the abandoned cabin at the forest's edge. I laughed it off at first, just another urban legend, but the closer I got, the more the trees seemed to close in, their skeletal branches scratching at the moonlight. By the time I reached the clearing, fog had begun to crawl along the forest floor. Damp air filled my lungs, and the scent of wet pine and rotting leaves made me shiver. The cabin loomed ahead, dark and silent, its windows like blind eyes watching me. The door hung on one rusty hinge, creaking with every gust of wind. Inside, dust coated the furniture like a forgotten memory. I ran my hand across the old wooden table, leaving a trail in the gray layer. Shadows twisted along the walls as my flashlight flickered. I could hear something faint, the soft tap of what I hoped was just a loose shutter in the wind. I set up my sleeping bag in the corner and tried to settle in. The temperature dropped sharply. My breath puffed in small clouds. Then I heard it, a faint, irregular knocking. Not outside, inside. My pulse quickened. I told myself it was just the old cabin settling. But the knocking came again, slower this time, deliberate. "Hello!" My voice sounded foreign, swallowed by the cabin's gloom. Silence answered. Then a whisper, soft and broken, drifted from the corner of the room. "You shouldn't be here." I froze. My mind raced. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe the stress, the fog outside, the isolation was making me hear things. But the whisper repeated, louder, almost behind me. My flashlight flickered again, and in that brief darkness, I saw her. A figure, pale and thin, appeared in the doorway. Her hair hung in wet strands over a face that seemed carved from shadows. Hollow eyes stared straight through me. I tried to speak, but no words came. My hands shook as I gripped the flashlight. The figure tilted her head, as if studying me, waiting for something. I ran. Through the cabin, out the door, into the foggy clearing. My shoes sank into wet leaves. Every tree seemed alive, reaching for me, branches clawing at my jacket. I glanced back. She was there, floating just beyond the fog, moving toward me without a sound. Heart pounding, I stumbled down the path, the forest twisting unnaturally. Every step felt heavier, like the fog itself was holding me back. Behind me, the whisper followed, now a chorus. "You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here." I burst onto the main road, gasping. A car passed, headlights slicing through the fog, and I dove toward it. The figure vanished instantly, as if swallowed by the mist. My chest heaved. I didn't stop until I reached the town, shaking and soaked, the whisper still echoing faintly in my ears. Weeks later, I returned to Hollow Pines during the day, determined to find the cabin in the light. The forest looked empty, ordinary. No cabin, no signs of decay, no trace of the terror I had faced. But when night fell, I sometimes dream of that doorway, of those hollow eyes. And when the wind shifts just right, I swear I hear the tapping, the whispers, calling me back. Some nights, I still wonder, did I see her? Or did she let me see what I was meant to fear? Either way, the fog remembers, the forest waits, and if I ever return, I might not be leaving again. I had been driving for hours through a stormy night when I saw the sign, Everwood in open 24 hours. The rain was relentless, hammering the windshield. My wipers struggled to keep up. I was exhausted, soaked, and the last thing I wanted was to drive another mile through the twisting, empty road. Pulling into the lot, I noticed the hotel looked older than the sign suggested. Its paint was peeling, and the windows reflected nothing but darkness. I shook off the unease, just fatigue, I told myself, and stepped inside. The lobby was dimly lit, the air thick with a musty scent, like wet carpet and old wood. The front desk was empty, but a bell sat on the counter. I rang it once. Silence. Twice. Still nothing. Then, from the far hallway, I heard the faint shuffle of footsteps. A man appeared, gaunt and pale, with eyes too dark to read. He didn't smile. "Room?" he asked in a voice that seemed to scrape along the walls. I nodded. He handed me an old brass key, its number barely legible. 7. As I walked down the corridor, the lights flickered, shadows stretching across the walls. The doors seemed closer than they should be, pressing in around me. I reached room 7, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The room was cold, much colder than the hallway. The bedspread was yellowed, the curtains torn. I felt watched. I tried to shake it off, placing my wet jacket on the chair, but then I heard it, a soft humming like a lullaby coming from the bathroom. I froze. No one else was supposed to be here. I told myself it was the wind, until the humming stopped, and a whisper followed. "You're not supposed to sleep here." My heart raced. I glanced around. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to move independently, twisting into shapes I couldn't name. The bathroom door creaked open slowly. A figure emerged, tall, thin, face obscured by a hood. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to obey. It tilted its head, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The whisper came again, closer this time, as if right next to my ear. "Leave before it's too late." I grabbed the key, the only thing I had, and bolted. Down the hallway, the lights went out entirely. My flashlight on my phone barely pierced the darkness. I heard footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate, matching my every move. Doors along the corridor banged open and shut violently, though no one was there. The hum from before started again, louder, echoing through the inn. I reached the lobby. The man from earlier stood there, motionless, his eyes black pits. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, voice low, almost amused. I ran past him, out the front doors, into the storm. The rain drenched me instantly, but I didn't care. I kept running until the hotel vanished behind the mist. Weeks later, I searched for the Everwood Inn, thinking I might have imagined the entire ordeal. Every map, every GPS listed nothing in that area. I asked locals, but no one had ever heard of it. I've never returned, but sometimes at night, when the storm hits hard and the wind howls, I swear I can hear the humming and whispering, calling my name, urging me to come back. Some nights, I wonder if I ever truly left, or if the silent hotel is still waiting for me, somewhere in the storm. It started the day I moved into the old family house on Willow Lane. Everyone warned me it had been empty for years, but I didn't care. I wanted space, silence, and a place far from the city. The first few nights were quiet, too quiet. The house groaned and settled, old wood complaining in the cold. I told myself it was normal, but on the third night, I heard something from the attic. A soft scratching like fingernails on wood. I froze. The attic was supposed to be locked. I ignored it, convinced it was my imagination. The next morning, I found the key for the attic lying on the kitchen counter. I didn't remember leaving it there. Curiosity gnawed at me. That night, I climbed the narrow stairs, flashlight in hand. The attic was dusty, filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. In the corner, a large mirror leaned against the wall. I hadn't noticed it before. Its surface was flawless, reflecting only the dim light of my flashlight. I stared into it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I saw something move behind me. Not my reflection, but something else. I spun around. Empty. "Get out!" A voice whispered from the mirror. I stumbled back, heart hammering. My flashlight flickered. The reflection changed. The room behind me appeared warped, darker, colder, though I was still standing in the same attic. Shadows moved in the corners of the glass, shifting unnaturally. I backed away, but my reflection stayed. It smiled. A slow, cruel smile that didn't match my own. I screamed and ran down the stairs, slamming the attic door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile, felt those eyes watching me. By morning, I was sure I had imagined it. Days passed. I avoided the attic, but things started disappearing. Small items at first: keys, a book, my watch. I blamed myself, thinking I misplaced them. But the final straw came when I saw it. My reflection, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee while I was standing in the doorway. I blinked. It vanished. I researched the house and discovered its history. Previous owners reported strange sightings in the attic, reflections moving independently, whispers at night. Some vanished entirely. No one ever returned. That evening, I decided to confront it. I climbed to the attic with the mirror. I held my flashlight high and spoke, "Show yourself." The reflection didn't respond. It stayed still until my flashlight flickered. Then, in the mirror, I saw not my own face, but someone else's, pale, hollow-eyed, grinning. It reached out, pressing a hand against the glass. My chest tightened. I tried to run. The attic stairs stretched endlessly before me, the door moving further away. The figure in the mirror advanced, and I felt its cold breath on my neck. I slammed into the attic door, collapsing outside. The house was silent again, but the mirror remained upstairs, facing the wall. I left the house the next day. I sold it, moved far away, and never returned. But sometimes in mirrors I see it, smiling, waiting. I've learned never to stare too long, never to linger near reflective surfaces, because it's patient, and it's always waiting for the moment I think I'm alone. I had just moved into a small downtown apartment, alone for the first time. It was cheap, surprisingly quiet, and conveniently close to work. Everything seemed perfect, until the noises started. At first, it was subtle, a creak here, a thump there. I told myself the building was old, the pipes settling, my imagination playing tricks. One night, I was scrolling through my phone when I heard it, a faint whisper from the hallway outside my bedroom. I froze. "Hello," I called softly. Nothing. I shrugged it off and went to sleep, but every night, the whispers grew clearer, closer. Sometimes, I could swear I heard footsteps pacing outside my door. One evening, I returned home late. My apartment felt off. The lights flickered. The air smelled faintly of smoke, though nothing was burning. I set my keys down and froze. My bedroom door was slightly ajar. I never leave it open. I stepped inside. Everything looked normal, but then I noticed my reflection in the hallway mirror. A figure stood behind me. A man tall with dark hair and blank eyes. I spun around. Empty hallway. Heart racing, I checked every corner, every closet. Nothing. I tried to convince myself it was stress, exhaustion. The next night, I slept with the door locked. But around 2 a.m., I woke to a whisper in my ear. "Let me in." I bolted upright. My apartment was empty, but the whisper repeated, soft and insistent. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, and rushed outside. The officer arrived, searched, found nothing. "Probably just old building noises," he said. I didn't sleep at all that night. Days passed. The apartment felt alive, watching me. Items moved, small things like my coffee mug. A chair slightly shifted. The whispers became words. "I'm here, always here." One night, I set up my phone to record the apartment while I slept. In the morning, I replayed the footage. For the first hour, nothing. Then, at 3:17 a.m., the figure appeared in the hallway mirror, standing perfectly still, staring directly at the camera. I could see its eyes, empty, black voids. My own reflection moved behind it, mimicking me, but wrong. Too slow, like a distorted echo. I watched, paralyzed, as it slowly stepped out of the mirror, into the hallway, my apartment. I left that night. I didn't pack properly. I didn't say goodbye. I just ran. A week later, I checked the listing online. The apartment was still available, and in the photos, the figure appeared, always in the hallway mirror, watching, waiting. I don't know if it follows tenants, or if it's trapped inside the apartment itself, but I've learned one rule: never trust reflections, never stay alone, and never ignore the feeling that someone or something is already inside. Because sometimes, the stranger isn't just in the apartment, it's in you. It arrived on a rainy Thursday, a plain cardboard box with no return address, sitting on my doorstep. I hadn't ordered anything, and the courier was long gone. Inside, I found a small, old-fashioned music box. Its wood was scratched, worn, and strangely warm to the touch. I lifted the lid, and a delicate, haunting melody began to play. I should have put it back immediately, but something held me. I stared at it for hours. That night, I slept uneasily. In the darkness, I heard the music box again, softly, faintly, though I hadn't wound it. My heart raced. I convinced myself it was a dream. The next morning, I tried to discard it. I left it in the trash outside. When I returned, it was on my kitchen counter. My hands shook. I thought I was losing it. Days passed. Every time I thought I'd lost it, the box reappeared. On my bed, in the bathroom, even on my car seat. And every time, the melody grew louder, more insistent. It wasn't cheerful, it was sad, mournful, almost pleading. One evening, exhausted and terrified, I played a game. I closed my eyes, wound the box, and waited. The melody started. Then I heard it. A whisper beneath the music. "Open the drawer," it said. My dresser drawer. Hesitant, I approached it. Inside, a small, folded piece of paper lay. I unfolded it. The words were scrawled in shaky handwriting. "I'm coming for you. Don't forget me." My blood ran cold. I had no idea who I was. That night, the music box played on its own. I stayed awake, eyes fixed on it. Shadows in my room seemed to stretch unnaturally, the corners darker than before. And then I saw movement, a reflection in the mirror that didn't match my own. A figure crouched behind me, pale and silent. I spun around. Empty room. The next day, I researched the music box. I found a small note online about a similar box from decades ago. Said to carry the essence of someone who died tragically, their spirit trapped inside. The box seeks the living to remember or replace them. I didn't understand exactly what that meant, but I didn't want to find out. I tried to give it away, left it at a thrift store, a stranger's doorstep, even the curb. Each time, the box returned. Weeks went by. The whispers became clearer, more demanding. "Remember me. Remember me." Couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. The melody haunted every corner of my mind. I began seeing fleeting glimpses of the figure, sometimes in reflections, sometimes just at the edge of my vision. Always pale, always watching. One morning, I woke to the music box on my nightstand. The lid was open. The melody was playing. And written in condensation on my mirror were the words, "Now it's your turn." I didn't stay to understand. I fled. Left my apartment, my job, everything. I never looked back. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I hear it again. The haunting melody of the music box, whispering through the dark, calling my name. And I know, no matter where I go, it's still waiting. Because once it chooses you, it never forgets. I moved into a new apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building. It seemed ordinary at first. Creaky floors, thin walls, but the rent was cheap, so I overlooked the quirks. The first week passed uneventfully. Then I noticed something odd. A door in the hallway I hadn't seen before. It was narrow, unmarked, and tucked between the bathroom and kitchen. I asked my neighbor about it, but she shook her head. That door's always been there, but nobody uses it. Probably a storage closet. Curious, I tried to open it. Locked. The key didn't fit. That night, I woke to a faint scratching sound. At first, I thought it was the pipes, but it grew louder, more deliberate, like nails against wood. I got up, my bare feet cold against the floor, and approached the mysterious door. The sound stopped. I shrugged it off and went back to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. Shadows seemed longer, angles sharper, and in the corner of my eye, I thought I saw the door shift, just slightly, as if it were breathing. Days passed and the scratching returned. Sometimes faint whispers, always when I was alone. I told myself I was imagining things. Old buildings make noises, right? Then, one night, I dreamt of the room behind that door. A child's laughter echoed, high and eerie. When I opened the door in the dream, the hallway extended endlessly, twisted, dark. I stepped inside and saw dozens of faces pressed against the walls. Hollow eyes staring, mouths silently screaming. I woke up sweating, my heart hammering. The next day, the scratching was louder. Couldn't ignore it. I went to the building's manager. He hesitated, then sighed. That room, no one's been in there for decades. They say the last tenant disappeared. Never found. Some people claim the room isn't even real. That night, desperation overtook fear. I grabbed a crowbar and forced the door open. Cold air spilled out, unnatural, smelling of damp wood and old decay. I stepped inside. The room was small, empty, but it felt wrong, like the air itself pressed against me. The walls were covered in scratch marks, hundreds of them, deep and jagged. In the center, a small, broken chair faced the wall, and on it, a single pair of tiny shoes, dusty and old, perfectly preserved. I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly. The shadows seemed to shift, coalescing into a shape. A child, pale, eyes black holes, fingers long and thin. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered. Its voice was like the scratching, sharp and echoing. I tried to run, but the door slammed shut on its own. Panic surged. I pounded, screamed, but it didn't budge. The room grew darker, colder. I could feel something pressing closer, circling me, breathing cold on my neck. I remember one thing before everything went silent. The child's eyes, hollow and endless, staring straight into mine, whispering, "You'll stay, like me." I woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat. Sunlight streamed through the window. The door was closed, locked. My key still didn't fit. I moved out the next day, left all my things behind. I don't know if the room was real or a dream, but sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I hear scratching at the edges of my apartment. And I know, somewhere that room waits. Some doors are meant to stay closed. I was driving home late one night after a long shift. The highway was deserted, fog rolling in thick and low. My headlights barely cut through it. I was tired, my eyes heavy, but the thought of my warm bed kept me going. About 20 miles in, I noticed a figure on the side of the road. A man, thin, wearing a dark hoodie, thumb out. I hesitated. Most of the time, hitchhikers this late were trouble, but something about him made me stop. Maybe it was the emptiness around, maybe curiosity. "Need a ride?" I asked, rolling down my window. He nodded silently, getting in without a word. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, old sweat, faintly metallic. I tried to make conversation, but he didn't speak. Not a word. Just sat there, staring straight ahead, hands folded on his lap. First, I thought he was shy, but then, the silence started to feel wrong. My own thoughts sounded loud, echoing off the car walls. I stole glances at him. His face, it was pale, almost translucent, with dark circles under his eyes, yet he didn't blink once. I asked him again where he was headed. No answer. I suggested a town down the road. Still nothing. The fog thickened. My car felt heavier. The radio, which I had left on, flickered, changing stations, broadcasting faint whispers I couldn't understand. I shivered, gripping the wheel tighter. Then I noticed the rearview mirror. My reflection showed him sitting behind me, though he was in the passenger seat. I jerked my head forward. Empty seat. My heart raced. I tried to shake it off. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe my mind playing tricks. But the feeling of being watched persisted, growing stronger with every mile. I glanced at the side mirror. Another face. A woman, pale, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes wide, staring at me from the fog. I blinked. Gone. Panic rose. I considered stopping, asking him to leave, but the road stretched endlessly, curling into shadows. I realized I couldn't remember the last time a mile marker passed. The car's engine coughed. I hit the brakes. Nothing. Accelerator pressed. The car didn't respond. The road ahead twisted unnaturally, bending, narrowing, fading into darkness. I slammed on the horn. The sound echoed, distorted, like a scream trapped in metal. Then I felt it, a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around. Empty. My heart hammered, sweat soaking my shirt. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me. Voices overlapping, some familiar, some alien. Drive, stay, never leave. In a desperate move, I swerved off the road into a clearing. Trees pressed in, branches clawing at the car. The fog wrapped around the hood, thick as smoke. I looked to my side. The passenger seat was empty again. Relief hit, until I saw a message etched on the glass. Finger marks slowly forming letters. "You can't leave." I bolted. The car finally started. I sped through the fog, shaking, trying to convince myself it was all hallucination. Hours later, I arrived at my apartment. Nothing followed me. I thought I was safe. That night, as I lay in bed, exhausted, I heard it. Soft breathing. Close. On the edge of my room. I didn't move. A whisper. Chilling and faint. "Where are we going next?" I haven't driven alone at night since.